The Indian Air Force has deployed the Jaguar deep penetration strike aircraft in the Andaman Islands. The Su-30 MKIs with the supersonic BrahMos cruise missiles are already deployed at Thanjavur. The Andaman and Nicobar Tri-Services Command and the Eastern Naval Command are carrying out joint exercises. Is India testing drills to activate the Malacca Straits choke points? Let's find out.
Indian Navy's destroyers, frigates, submarines and aircraft, including the P-8I long-range maritime reconnaissance and patrol aircraft, are carrying out communication, information sharing and submarine hunting exercises in the Indian Ocean region, along with USS Nimitz and the US Navy Carrier Strike Group. This PASEX or passage exercise is being seen as a dress rehearsal for the Malabar series of exercises, which this year may also see the participation of Australia along with the United States and Japan. The Indian Air Force has deployed deep penetration strike aircraft Jaguars in Andaman Islands as India prepares to set up additional airstrips and landing grounds in the uninhabited islands for better protection of sea lanes of communication. The Indian Air Force is also extensively deployed for a swift response. Apart from the Jaguars, the Su-30 MKI air dominance fighters with BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles are also deployed.
USS Nimitz, US Navy का विशाल हवाई युद्धपोत पैसिफिक ओशन से होते हुए मलाक्का स्ट्रेट से होते हुए भारत हिंद महासागर में आया और वहां उसने भारतीय नौसेना के साथ एक युद्ध अभ्यास किया। ये एक अच्छी एक संदेश है एक तरीके से, और दूसरा ये दिखाता है कि इन दो नौसेनाओं के बीच में कितना अच्छा तालमेल अब बन गया है।
Though China has been talking about disengaging from flashpoints in Ladakh, the process is extremely slow, and India activating the choke points or pressure points in the Indian Ocean region sends out a clear signal to checkmate China. The bulk of Chinese trade and energy requirements pass through the Malacca Straits, and the Indian Navy has been carrying out a series of exercises in these waters.
I think the Indian Navy is doing a great job and has sent a strategic message that we are here, and should things go out of control, then we can very well take on the Chinese side somewhere in the oceans.
The Indian Navy has in the past month activated forward deployment posture both in the Arabian Sea and in the Bay of Bengal. India's aircraft carrier, destroyers, frigates, submarines and maritime reconnaissance and patrol aircraft are out protecting sea lanes of communication. In the past week, both the Eastern Naval Command and the Andaman and Nicobar Tri-Services Command have conducted an exercise not far from the Malacca Straits.
The timing of the Indian Navy exercise is extremely important. Not just is the Indian Navy carrying out drills with the US Navy, but is also independently wargaming all scenarios of Chinese forays amid the tension in Ladakh between the Indian and the Chinese armies. The Indian Navy wants to be extremely sure and be battle ready to detect all Chinese activities during this time. Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
Joining me now on the broadcast is Commodore Anil Jai Singh, Vice President of the Indian Maritime Foundation. With me is India Today's Abhishek Bhalla and Sandeep Unithan, Executive Editor, India Today. But Abhishek, if I may come to you first, bring us the specific details, the ships that are participating and the nature of this exercise. What's the aim, Abhishek?
Well, Gaurav, if you see, one thing is in common, be it in Ladakh up north or in the waters here south of Andamans, there is complete synergy that is being war-gamed, as far as the Indian forces are concerned. We've seen a lot of exercises, a lot of drills that happened in Ladakh. You were there in Ladakh. I too have spent time, and we saw how the Air Force and the Army are working in complete tandem to make sure that if required, operations can be launched very swiftly. A similar thing is happening in the oceans, and that's the reason why Andaman Nicobar Tri-Service Command, which is the only Tri-Service Theatre Command, is completely in action now. We are seeing assets of the Navy, Air Force, as well as the Army trying to war game all scenarios, and it's just to make sure that if at all there is any requirement in the seas for the Navy to up its game, then the Indian forces are ready.
Okay.
And also the timing is so significant. There's been an independent drill done by the Indian Navy,
Yes.
and also with the US Navy. So it shows that not just the Indian Navy or the Indian forces alone, but there is also international, global,
Okay.
coming together of the Indian forces.
That's
to
very
make
interesting
sure-
that you point out about the presence of the US Navy in these waters. Sandeep, PASIX with the United States Carrier Strike Group. Is this symbolic, or is there a much deeper message, especially with Malabar round the corner and Australia may just join, Sandeep, along with Japan?
Gaurav, it's no coincidence that the U.S. Carrier Strike Group is in the Bay of Bengal exactly at the time that we have one of the longest standoffs with China in Ladakh. Now, it's no coincidence that the U.S. Carrier Strike Group appeared there. It's clearly a very, very big strategic message to China. Gaurav, it's signaling of a kind that we haven't seen in the recent past, not even with the previous installments of the Malabar exercises. They have always been pure exercises, but this is for the first time you have an exercise taking place simultaneously with a standoff between India and China. India is signaling to China that, look, these are our options. The maritime theater is open. We've deployed the Air Force in Ladakh. We will not hesitate to deploy the Indian Navy in the Indian Ocean. Gaurav.
Okay. Commodore Anil Jai Singh, trouble in Ladakh, response in the Indian Ocean. Is that the signal that India is sending out? Are we activating, are these drills to test the choke points?
Yes, I'm sure it's the underlying intent is that, because it's not, like Sandeep said, it's not a coincidence that the Indian Navy is exercising just off the Malacca Straits in the South Andaman Sea. I think it's a message that's going out, and the Indian Navy has been paying a lot of emphasis on its maritime domain awareness. And I think one way of checking the entry of the PLA Navy into the Indian Ocean is to ensure that there's enough concentration of force and enough surveillance capability available at those particular choke points from where they could possibly ingress. India has a strategic advantage in the Indian Ocean. Anybody coming into the Indian Ocean has to come in through one of the 3 or 4 choke points that are there. And I think if we can check the arrival, or obviously we can't attack them unless a naval conflict would lead to an escalation which will become difficult to control. But certainly, even if we can't stop them, we can certainly monitor them. And monitoring a submarine or monitoring a ship is as good as neutralizing its advantage. I don't think personally the PLA Navy has the capacity to take on the Indian Navy in the Indian Ocean. The Indian Navy is a far superior force. The PLA Navy has to come many thousands of miles. It perhaps has the logistic lines to support its operations in peacetime. But war is a totally different ballgame. I mean, it's not only about being there, it's about fighting and winning a war. So I don't think the PLA Navy is going to venture into the Indian Ocean to take on the Indian Navy as part of the escalation.
That's very interesting you point that out, because Sandeep, there are intelligence reports that seem to indicate that the moment Indian Navy sailed out, and we've sailed out on both sides, Bay of Bengal and in the Arabian Sea, the Chinese ships that were around, they actually exited this area. Can you give us more details, Sandeep?
Well, Gaurav, we know for a fact that China since 2008 has been deploying warships in the Persian, near the Gulf of Aden. They call it anti-piracy patrols, but I mean, it's a very obvious deployment or forward deployment of their Navy, which they've been testing for several years. They've been there for 12 or 13 years, but like Commodore Singh pointed out, they lack the capability to take on the Indian Navy, given the fact that they're operating so far from home. But they've also been trying to beef up their basing in the Indian Ocean region, Gaurav. They have a base in Djibouti. They've tried to build up other bases along the Indian Ocean region to enhance their staying power, their reach in the Indian Ocean region, because 80% of China's energy supplies still pass through the Indian Ocean region and through the narrow Malacca Straits. That's the Malacca dilemma that we spoke about yesterday. This is a very, very big area of concern for them. Yes. And the reason that they have warships in the Indian Ocean region is to protect that. And if they're unable to protect their energy supplies, then that Malacca dilemma remains for a very, very long time, Gaurav.
In fact, that is where we see a new aggression in India's response. And we'll talk about that in greater detail. We see the aggressive deployment that Abhishek Bhalla was talking about in terms of our Sukhoi 30s, MiG-29 air superiority fighters being deployed in Ladakh. We see our ships and submarines sailing out and China exiting the Indian Ocean region. But China appears to have activated the Hotan Air Base. Now, this is the nearest air base to eastern Ladakh. There is a high alert there. Satellite imagery seems to indicate that there is additional deployment of fighter jets, unmanned aerial vehicles, bombers, and even missile systems in this area.
Battle tested. And combat ready round the clock. As India ramps up deployments in the Ladakh region alongside the talks over disengagement, China seems to have sent its aerial preparedness on a high alert. An analysis of satellite imagery as latest as June 22nd offers a peek at Hotan, China's nearest airbase in the tense Ladakh region. Barely 200 kilometers northeast of Karakoram Pass and less than 400 kilometers from the Finger 4 area of Pangong Tso. Chinese fighter jets, drones, bombers and missile systems seen from up in the skies. Hotan is a dual-use airport for civilian and military purposes. 3 of its 4 aprons are dedicated to the Chinese Air Force, the PLAAF. The latest imagery shows a regiment each of the China-built JA-2 and J-11B combat jets, aircraft with intelligence and early warning devices.
China's PLA Air Force does not have any combat experience at all. They have not fought any war since their raising. They depend on their training to overcome this problem.
China's missile system at Hotan also seems active. The Chinese have erected the HQ-9 surface-to-air missiles with at least 7 radars. Satellite shows the number of buildings and accommodations for additional troops.
Training cannot replace the real combat experience. The new fighters, UAVs, and special aircrafts like airborne early warning systems can help them, but they do not stand a chance in front of the battle-hardened Indian Air Force.
India's combat potential spurs Beijing to raise its guard. More so after the PLA's misadventurism in the Himalayas. Bureau Report, India Today.
Commodore Anil Jay Singh, is China's deployment now more in response to India's deployment? And do we see some more changes then in the Indian Ocean region, with India now talking about activating more advanced landing grounds, more assets to be deployed in the Indian Ocean region? Is it also now time to send out our fighter jets to carry out an exercise perhaps with friendly Southeast Asian countries, sir?
Actually, in terms of maritime deployments, I think the kind of presence of the Indian Navy at the choke points, as I mentioned earlier, would be enough of a deterrent to prevent any ingress of the PLA Navy into the Indian Ocean. However, if the situation does start getting worse or gets more tense, and China at any stage feels that its sea lines of communication are threatened, as was mentioned, it's heavily dependent on its oil coming in from the Gulf, then there would be a situation where they would definitely want to not allow their supply lines to be disrupted. And therefore, a situation could develop and escalation could take place.
Fair enough.
This is something that India would have to be careful about because...
Fair enough, there still is. Yes, there still is clear and present danger. You're absolutely right, and we'll be tracking that story very closely. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. But before we leave, I want to show you images of what's happening inside China. The Three Gorges Dam on China's longest river, the Yangtze, is virtually bursting at the seams. Several parts of central and south China are literally neck deep in floodwaters. The floods in China are being described as once-in-a-century floods. There is a massive flow of water into the Three Gorges Dam. More than 300 tributaries of the Yangtze River are overflowing. And according to information filtering out of China, close to 200 people have so far lost their lives. But the worst is yet to come. The damage to property already runs into several $billion. Last week, 3 floodgates of the Three Gorges Dam had to be opened. Suddenly, as water was flowing more than 50 feet above the flood mark. In fact, news coming in seems to indicate that a smaller dam on one of the other rivers had to be blasted to save lives and property. And like we said, some say the worst is yet to come. We leave you with these images. Lots more on the other side of a quick break. Stay with us.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.